Okay, we're going to talk about Battle Magic Path of Death. Um, let's start off with the Path attribute, Cloud of Despair. Despair. Despair is a much scarier thing. I'm glad I didn't include that in the rules. Range 24, last one turn. Target has leadership -1. Unit may only be affected by this spell once per magic phase.
You can't stack it up on somebody.
Correct. But this is another very nice attribute as far as I'm concerned. Leadership is a big deal in the game.
Leadership's a huge deal.
You know, you tie this on something that has fear. Now you got, I'm assuming you get a -2.
Right.
That's a real big deal. So even with a steadfast and
right.
you know, re-rolling and then general's inspiring presence can.
Well, I mean, I think the first target of this every turn is the general because you're basically bringing the guy's army down by one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
potentially, yeah.
That's fairly devastating.
Right. But
To have your entire army drop by one, I don't like having a 9 leadership. Somebody targets my general, now I've got an 8 leadership for my army.
Yeah. Well, that's if you're not one of the. If you've got even an okay general.
Right.
So yeah. But absolutely. So no, I think this is a top shelf as far as an ability. It's something that people don't like to see. And tied to this is another lore where the casting values are actually quite nominal, so it is possible to get a couple casts off.
Okay. The 0 spell, the default is the Touch of the Reaper. Cast it in 8, boost to 11, range 18, focused hex, direct damage, instant. Target suffers 1 wound with armor piercing 6. An unsaved wound. Oh, get a wound. The unsaved. Oh, if you do the boosted version,
Right.
the caster gets a wound back.
Right.
Doesn't increase the range though.
Correct.
So it's a max 18-inch range, which I'd like the spell, but so 18-inch range is a little bit of a limitation on it. But after the first turn, you should be within 18 of something, right?
Sure.
The only time that might cause a problem is on the first turn. I like it. It's decent. The no armor save is pretty good. You're not going to want even your big demon guy hit by it because it's an auto wound, no armor save.
Right. The nice thing is it's focused. So.
Oh, you can pick a guy out of a unit too.
Yeah. So you're gonna, pick off champions when maybe you're going against somebody you don't want the champion sucking off your challenge.
Right. Good point.
You pink at low-level wizards and people start getting nervous.
Yes, put a wound on one.
Yeah. The or even just in general any kind of character. That's or especially mid-range ones don't tend to have ward saves, so that it can be pretty nice. I mean, the casting values is okay, and
it's another 3 dice spell, kind of, isn't it?
It is.
With an 8.
Yeah, and the range is somewhat kind of close, so you kind of probably want to, and that's true of a number of spells, but it's something you want to have on something that's probably mobile or is a little resilient themselves, because you don't want them, if they're going to be charged, you want to be able to fight. Yeah, it's decent. Next spell, first spell on the roll, so Curse of Mortality, 6 to cast, really low casting value, 9 up in the boosted version, range 24, it's a hex, last one turn, target has -1 strength, an additional -1 toughness if it's the boosted version to a minimum of 1. This is a really, really nice utility spell. It's kind of, I guess, the flip side of Wilderness with the +1 strength.
With +1 strength and toughness. Yeah.
But it has the bonus that you get the lower casting value just to affect one attribute.
Yeah, and 9, I mean, you're talking about 1 extra die to boost it to do strength and toughness.
Correct. But if you don't have a dice, now you're putting 2 at this,
right.
Casting it, maybe you need a 4 or 5 depending on your mage. That's a nice thing just to get +1 strength. And sometimes that's all you need, depending on who you're fighting against. You don't always need the extra toughness, if you're well protected or your opponent doesn't have a lot of strength. So I think it's a really nice spell.
Yeah, no, I like this. -1 strength on an opponent's a good penalty for him. Because that's a universally good spell, I think.
Yeah.
And the casting cost of 6 at a range 24 is also really good. Number 2 spell is the Gnawing Spirits. cast on a 7 or a 9. Range 24, Hex magic missile damage, instant. Target suffers 2d6, boosted to 3d6, strength 2 hits with armor piercing 6. Ooh, no armor save. Oh, against armored opponents, this is pretty good. Armored human knights, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Wounding on 5s.
Or elvish knights.
Or elvish knights, yeah. Wounding on 5s, that's fantastic. You know, harder stuff, wounding on 6s makes it a little less useful, but they're still not going to let it go through. I mean, I'm casting on a 7.
Casting on a 7, I think that's really
good.
That's the rub there. You know,
This is one of those spells that, you know, like the low strength spells, you can toss this as 2d6 at a war machine just to throw it at it, and the guy's not going to be comfortable letting it get through because you get lucky and you roll a couple 6s and.
Well, I think this is one of those spells that it quite often isn't going to do a whole bunch,
Right.
but because of the multiple d6, as the recipient, it's going to make you think about
Right.
do you want to risk it or not,
And no armor save, so
Right.
you're
Because
taking
of the-
out a whole section of way to save this.
and you're taking out a die roll. So
Right.
yeah, no, I think that's it makes it one of those. It makes it a scary spell.
Yes, it is a missile, so it is going to be forward arc, you know, line of sight.
Yeah.
But no, that's good. It's a good spell.
Yeah. Next spell is Soul Leech, 7 to cast, 10 in the boosted version, range of 12, boosted range is 24, focused again, a lot of focused, 2 focused things I think in this lore. It's a hex, direct damage, instant, both caster and target roll a d6 and add their current leadership to it. If the caster total is higher and the target suffers a number of wounds with armor piercing 6 equal to the difference between the respective total. So another spell is very similar to Days of Eighth.
Yeah, the old Spirit Leech spell.
Yeah. And it's I think it's as helpful as now as it was then. I mean, I think it's a good spell for targeting, you know, lone monsters particularly, which have low leadership, medium leadership characters, etc. Picking off people that are outside that leadership bubble.
Especially if you have
a
good
good
leadership
yeah.
army. Yes.
You know, if you're a 10.
Yeah, if you're I'm not
you're
sure this is
spamming
going to help you a whole lot if you're a 9 leadership army.
Well, I think it'd be okay.
It's worth a shot, I guess.
Just I think it limits your target. So
Right.
maybe it's going to be more questionable. It's still a die roll, you
Right.
know, and it is focused. So
Well, the range is rather short.
yeah,
At the 7 casting, you got to go up to 10, which is pushing on 4 dice at
It
that
is.
point
right, it is.
to be useful early.
But if I got a monster on the flank and somebody's throwing, I'm going to throw 4 dice at it for a chance of,
For a
of
chance
killing
to hurt it bad, yes.
You know, yeah.
Even if you don't kill it, to hurt it bad, because I mean, monsters are fairly low leadership in general,
Generally,
right?
yes, exactly. So
Okay.
still a powerful spell, I think.
Okay. Number 4, we have the Soul Harvest, which casts on an 8, boost to a 12, range 24, last one turn. Targets close combat attacks gain divine attacks. And then if you use the boosted version, successful saving throws taken against the target's close combat attacks must be re-rolled. So it's an augment that you're casting on your own unit,
Right.
that you're forcing. It gives you divine attacks and forces your opponent to re-roll if you boost it, force them to re-roll their armor saves. It's range 24. It's good because you're targeting your own unit again, not your opponent.
Correct.
So they're more likely to be in that range bubble. The boosted version, looks like it's going to be really good. Make them re-roll their armor save. And again, if it's an unarmored opponent, then you don't need the boosted version. I like that they didn't price that into the spell and gave that as a. But
Anytime you have choices, I think is a
yeah,
nice thing.
but again, it's divine attacks.
Yeah.
Divine attack. Divine attacks, unless you're playing demons, you know, I don't know.
I'm kind of there. I mean, unless you're playing, well, anything that's otherworldly, I suppose. But ethereal troops, you know.
It gives you a better chance to wound them. I mean, they're re-rolling on 2-ups, but
Yeah.
it does give you the extra chance to wound
Helps
them.
you against characters, of course, because most of those are going to be walking around with some kind of save.
If they're out on their own, because
Yeah.
again, this is not targeted like the
Well,
focused like the others.
Yeah, but in the context of close combat. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
right.
But yeah, I think it's very situational myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of a. You're right. All right.
Yeah. The Abyss Gazes Back. That's a very scary name. The 10 to cast, not easy to cast. Range of 18. It's augment again. Last one turn. Target gains lethal strike and fear. 10 is a good number.
10's a big
I mean,
number.
that's a 4 dice number most of the time. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
The 5 if you really wanted to get the thing off. Range isn't fantastic. Lethal strike is a nice ability, but it is still a 6, and you know it's
6 on your to wound. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to have a lot of hits. Yeah, I think for it to really pay for itself. Fear is always a nice thing, but there's other ways I think to get fear, you know, in the game.
I guess if you combine this with the lore attribute, you're -2 to their leadership,
Right.
right?
And it's okay if you don't have other ways to get fear in your army. I suppose it's okay. I'm lukewarm on this one, to be perfectly honest.
I don't know. The name alone would make
But
me
the
stop.
name is-
The name, the name alone will make me try to dispel it. Waste some dice on it. All right, and the last one, 6, Storm of Souls. This one's a casting on a 14.
Does this make people throwing shoes at you?
This one's casting on a 14. It's a vortex, range of 6. Range of 6. Oh,
6 times a dice.
Correct, 6 times a dice. It's a 1-inch template, small template, ground, instant. Models touched by the template must pass an initiative test or suffer 1 wound with multiple wounds ordinance, armor piercing 6, and no regen saves allowed. So this looks like the old
Purple Sun.
Sun, yeah. But now you get ward saves, right?
Yes.
But now you get ward saves. It's a 1-inch template, much less useful.
Mm-hmm.
14 casting cost means you're going to cast
Huge.
5 dice.
Yep.
The 6-inch times the 6-inch base range is really good. That means it's going to go a long way.
Out to 30. Yeah.
It's only 1-inch. You know, it's the 1-inch template.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an initiative test, so it's conditional on which armies. You know,
Right.
you're not. I mean, I wouldn't want to throw 5 dice at an army to use this on an elfin army.
No, that would be playing the 0 spell against the elves, but yeah.
Yeah. So
But against orcs and goblins
orcs
and
and goblins,
ogres
dwarves with armor piercing. What? Armor piercing 6. Then yeah, it's
on
a
20, and they're on smaller bases, so you can.
smaller base, but it's still a 5 dice spell.
Yeah.
That's what's crushing that. Okay, so it's useful at conditionally. Again, another conditional one, right?
Like I said, well, it's one of the big mega death spells. I mean, they're all kind of similar. They were an 8th, but
Right.
now there's harder to cast.
Yeah, and if you're
which is a good thing.
if you're in front of it, you're only going to hit 2 guys per rank, basically on pretty much any unit, because no
Well,
matter
20
how big they are, you go down the crack.
Right.
Oh,
Wait,
20 millimeter,
20
I
to
guess
3.
you can get 3.
Yeah.
If they're 20 millimeter guys.
And you get the angle too. You can do some funky things with the angle.
That's
So,
true.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer that rule that's no more than
Right.
whatever per angle.
So I mean, it's nowhere as potent as it was, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the old one was just way
Winning
broke.
games all by itself, but yeah, I think it fits. It's similar to all the mega death spells. But it's just hard to cast.
All right. Overall, kind of weak on this one. I'm going to go kind of middle of the road on this because there's a couple conditional spells. I do like the lore attribute. The default spell I kind of like. Yeah, overall, this is kind of a negative for me. I'm not a big fan of this one.
A little different. I don't like the 5 and 6 so much, just because of the high casting values and situation. But I do like a lot of the other spells. I like the low casting values. I like the lore attribute. I think this lore actually kind of works well with a number of armies.
Really? But the 4 spell, that's extremely conditional as well.
Sure.
Only giving you divine attacks on the base. If you boost it, making a guy reroll his armor saves, that's a big thing.
It is, but it is a 12 too.
But it's a 12 for
Yeah.
that. Well, the Heavens has that one that's what, a 10 to make him reroll armor?
Right.
Yeah, I just think that's a real conditional spell. So 4, 5, and 6, I'm really not a big fan of.
Yeah.
3 again, the arm, depending on the army you have
Right.
and their leadership. Yeah, I'm okay with it, but no, it's a middle of the road spell for me. It's kind of even. It's not. I don't think it's a bad.
I don't think it's
lore.
bad. I give it better just because I think on the lower level spells, they're relatively easy to cast. It helps you, especially if you're dealing with armies where you're challenged fighting their characters or you're challenged fighting their monsters.
Right.
You know, it gives you tools to help with that. And
Yeah.
and
Overall,
-1 leadership, really like
I
that.
really like them. I do really like the minus one. But again, there's armies that doesn't affect. So
Sure, sure.
this is a very, to me, this is a very conditional lore. I don't think it's going to see it. I wouldn't use it a lot in a tournament setting because when you're facing random opponents
Right.
every game, this one has a lot of conditional spells in it that will probably not help you a lot
Yeah, that's true.
in, so,
That's
in
true.
from game to game.
So it
but-
looks like
So I'm going to go with the.
we're going to be split. So,
If it's an up or down, this one's going to get a down from me.
so thumbs up for Statler and thumbs
Down
down
for Waldorf.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's not going to go for me.